In my brain, I kept thinking, this cannot be happening. I am going to wake up and this is going to be some really sick joke, some awful joke, some alternate reality. I was just trying to really understand if what I was reading was actually real. Did my husband actually say those things?
Some stories stay with you, not because they're dramatic, though this one has its share of hard moments. They stay with you because they're true in a way that reaches past your defenses and lands somewhere personal. Michelle's story is one of those. She's known online as Rising Phoenix, and if you've come across her posts on social media, you already know there's something different about the way she tells her story. She's not performing recovery. She's not wrapping things up too neatly. She's just honest about what happened, what it cost her, and what it took to come through it. A few years ago, Michelle woke up one morning, sat down at a laptop that had been left on the table, and discovered that her husband had been having an affair. 22 years of marriage, and in one quiet moment, everything changed. What she did with that, how she survived it, how she processed it, and eventually how she found her way to share it with others, that's what we're going to talk about today. This is part one of a 2-episode conversation. Today, we'll cover the discovery, the trauma, the first year, and the impact on her kids. Part 2 will take us through what healing actually looked like and what her marriage became on the other side. If you're someone in the middle of this yourself, I want you to know this conversation was made for you. I'm Tim Tedder, and I'm glad you're listening.
Welcome to The Recovery Room, a podcast presented by affairhealing.com.
In this healing place, in this healing place.
Michelle, you eventually decided to take your experience and your story, and you started posting your story on social media, which is kind of public. What prompted you to do that?
Early on in our healing, we found a website. We started watching some videos on this website. It was, you're always searching for information. You're always searching for ways to try and get help and support. So this website, they're showing videos, and he had an affair on his wife. And he was doing these videos and talking about his experience and his wife's experience and taking ownership and accountability. So we started watching a few more of those because they resonated with my husband. After a few episodes, he made a point of saying, when you're on this journey, you'll most likely come to a point where you want to share your story. And of course, my husband and I looked at each other and thought, hell no, that's not happening. All you see, for whatever reason, is the negative, shameful negative. You're weak for staying. You deserve what you get for staying. Cheater's always a cheater. And I remember reading these and I thought, no, there's no way. Because what if I do choose to stay? And then that's the stigma that goes with it. But he wasn't wrong. So as we progressed in our healing and I began to heal myself, I came to a point where it's like, oh, I might feel the urge to kind of share my story. How do I do that? And when I spoke to my husband and our kids about it, they weren't quite ready for us to become public. So then that's when the posts were faceless and I just started sharing that way.
Yeah, you did it under the pseudonym of Rising Phoenix.
Yeah.
So that's what people, knew you as if they read your post. I mean, do you think when you went on that you were writing primarily as a process to heal yourself or to get your message out in case it was helpful for other people?
A bit of both, actually. If I were to think back, it was probably more about healing myself. But at the same time, when you're looking for information, you find all this negative stuff about spouses who choose to stay. I thought I can't be the only one who might choose to stay. I can't be the only one who's walking through this process. And I wasn't, as I found out. And I wanted to show that healing can happen. We were a couple years in already, and I was at a place where, why don't I share what we've experienced, what I've experienced? Because we're growing together, we're progressing together, we're healing together, and oh my goodness, this can actually happen. Though it started out as a healing for me, then it progressed into, I wanted to share the experience and let people know that if you choose to stay, the shame is not yours. It's okay. And this is where we're at. This is how far we've come.
Was there anything that surprised you about your story when you saw it laid out in written form?
It definitely was real. I'm putting it out there, but it was the responses from people who were sending me DM messages. Thank you so much. I appreciate your message. I resonate with that message. It makes me feel seen. It makes me feel heard, and I'm definitely not alone. And so it was shocking because I didn't expect to get anything in return.
Did you get any criticism?
Yes. Yes.
Like
Yes,
what kind of criticism would you get?
I've seen messages where your marriage is dead. What's wrong with you? One the other day, actually, you're keeping him captive in a lifeless situation. And, there's the odd one that still comes through, but it was a lot of, you deserve what you get. Those same comments that I found earlier as I was searching, you're delusional. There was a lot of you're delusional.
Yeah. I think some people are so convinced that the only way out of infidelity is to leave the relationship because you'll never be happy. You'll never have a successful relationship. There's this kind of a doom that's put on it. And I think probably those perspectives come out of a lot of pain, a lot of hurt. But your story is just one example of a relationship that not only gets past the infidelity, but learns and grows and changes in ways that are good.
Yeah. You learn, you heal. There's so many layers to it.
Well, obviously, even though you're experiencing those benefits of a healed relationship, that has not come quickly or easily.
Nope.
I mean, you write about the years of having to go through the ups and downs and the pains and the encouragements. Let's go back and talk about some of those things you experienced early on, when you first found out, and maybe explain to the listeners, how did you find out about your husband's infidelity?
It was left on the computer wide open. It was a regular morning. He had already left for work, and I'd come downstairs shortly after to get my coffee. I was getting ready for work, and I found the computer on the kitchen table. It was not there the night before. And so I got this really huge knot in the pit of my stomach. My heart started to beat. My mouth went dry, and I was just, should I look? Should I not look? I had been suspicious for a while. When it comes to lying, he's not very good at it. So I opened up the computer. I didn't have to go far. I didn't have to search for him. I didn't have to search for it was right there.
Yeah.
And so I sat down and I started going through his Facebook Messenger. And it was a slow progress of what was happening to me because I'm reading, I'm going back and I'm reading, and it was awful.
Yeah.
It was absolutely awful. It was shocking, but not shocking at the same time. And I remember touching the mouse and scrolling, but I don't remember feeling the mouse and scrolling. I remember sitting in the chair. I remember going through the motions, but I don't remember feeling going through the motions. It was just this strange feeling of nothing. And then I got the pleasure of watching it in live action because they were talking back and forth, and I remember watching it, and I remember just seeing my hands shake. I'm pretty sure my whole body was shaking, but I don't again remember feeling anything. And so the whole dissociation was in process. I sent him a message and called him out after reading probably 4, 6, 8 weeks worth of it. I read it all, is what I do know. And I remember sending him a message, and he called me, and I remember that. I remember picking up the phone and talking to him, but I just don't remember feeling anything. He said, "Do you want me to come home?" And that was my first moment where the words "I don't know" came out of my mouth, because those words stuck with me for months. My friends were, "How are you feeling?" "I don't know. I don't know." There was a lot of "I don't know." And then he's like, you don't have proof. I was like, yeah, I do. He's like, "No, you don't." And he hung up the phone, and then I showed him the proof. And that was it. And he was on his way home, and I was still just sitting there scrolling back and forth, because I went back and forth. I kept looking and looking. The disbelief in what I was reading, I think I was searching for it. There's no way this is actually happening. This cannot be real.
You write a lot about that experience of the day one discovery, the trauma that started showing up. I mean, you describe it in very visceral terms, the experience that you felt in your body.
Yeah.
How did your body experience this?
Oh, I shut down. My whole body, I just shut right down. As I'm reading messages, like my eyes literally went blurry, and I'm, trying to focus so I can see what I'm reading, so I can see what was happening, but it just all went blurry. The pit of my stomach felt empty, and that became part of what my triggers were a sign of. I just felt heavy.
You went back and reread the painful messages multiple times.
Yep.
Why did you feel the need to do that?
Shock. In my brain, I kept thinking, this cannot be happening. I am going to wake up and this is going to be some really sick joke, some awful joke, some alternate reality. I was just trying to really understand if what I was reading was actually real. Did my husband actually say those things?
So when you understand your story and this discovery that your husband's been involved with someone else, it's interesting that one of the early things you write about in this experience is the need to forgive yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You say forgiving yourself was harder than forgiving him.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Before Discovery Day, our marriage was not a safe environment for any of us. We both came in early on when we met. We both came in with our own sets of trauma. We both came in with our own sets of history, and none of that had been resolved. What we had learned after was my husband had ADHD and BPD, and those played a huge factor in his behaviors, his reactions, his ability to take a situation and walk through it with support and help. And after so many years of that, I started to react. And then it just became unhealthy. Logically, at that time, leaving would have been better, but I didn't. And so forgiving myself for that is huge. Forgiving myself for not choosing me, forgiving myself for abandoning myself, forgiving myself for accepting less than I deserve, forgiving myself for ignoring all the red flags, forgiving myself for allowing behaviors within myself, for allowing behaviors from my husband in situations, for just allowing this toxic marriage to evolve into what it had. That's one of the major things that I had to try and really forgive myself for. Our first year was messy. There was nothing pleasant about it. And there were so many mistakes that were made, so many choices that weren't made that should have been made. The unknown was scary. Choosing to forgive myself for that whole process and just allowing myself to completely fall apart. There's a quote that I heard that really stuck with me, and it's forgiving myself for not knowing what only time could teach. And that stuck with me.
Yeah.
So there was a lot to forgive myself for. Our kids grew up in that environment. That was huge. I didn't make right choices for them. I didn't make right choices for me.
So it wasn't about forgiving yourself because you felt responsible for the affair.
No.
It was forgiving yourself just for playing a passive part in what your marriage had become, I guess.
Yep.
And then I think when we've talked before, there's even a part of it where you had to forgive yourself for choosing to stay at the beginning.
Felt like I had to. I hadn't come to a place where I was okay with staying. I stayed that first year, but we were struggling and we weren't healing. We just kept opening up more trauma and more hurt. Then when I did choose to stay, I thought, oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay.
There is no moral imperative for either staying or leaving after infidelity. And no one should be able to stand and say, this is what you should do, and then judge you if you do something different from their opinion. Esther Perel says the old shame used to be leaving a marriage. Now the new shame is staying in one after
Yeah.
infidelity. So
Yeah.
that sense of I need to forgive myself for staying probably was informed by all the messages you've received. Like, well, of course, he's done this. You should kick him out and move on with your life.
Yeah.
And the fact that you weren't, sometimes the struggle is, what's wrong with me? Why am I so weak? I can't make this choice. But that's not the only thing that's influencing a decision like that. But yeah, that's interesting. Before we continue, I want to make sure you know about something Michelle has put together that I think is genuinely worth your time. She's written out her full story, all of it, from discovery day through the healing of her marriage, in a free ebook available right now on affairhealing.com. It covers everything with the same honesty you're hearing today, and then some. She wrote it over time, post by post, chapter by chapter, and when it came together in a complete story, it became something really meaningful. If you want to read alongside this series or share it with someone who isn't quite ready to listen but needs to know they're not alone, go to affairhealing.com/rising, where you'll find a link to download it for free. That link is also provided in the episode notes. Okay, back to the conversation with Michelle. Was there ever a moment when you realized that his affair had nothing to do with who you are, your worth, your value? Or did that realization come slowly?
When we hit about the year mark, I had a breakdown. I fell apart physically, emotionally, mentally, and I spent weeks in bed. I wasn't eating. I wasn't taking care of myself properly. I wasn't sleeping. And when I was diagnosed with CPTSD, that kind of put a name to what was happening to me. Once I started listening to my body and healing my body and getting rest and doing the things that I needed to do to take care of myself through a lot of meditation, through a lot of journaling, I don't know if it just came to me or if it was a slow progress. I just understood that this had nothing to do with my worth, had nothing to do with me. There was nothing I could have done to have prevented his choices.
Yeah.
I could have cooked better meals, could have done this, could have done that. It wouldn't have mattered because the issue was his internal struggle. Once he was diagnosed as well, that played a factor in that as well. It just, that whole year is kind of a slow progress. Nothing really started to happen until that year mark, and I fell apart, and then I had to pick myself up. And once I was diagnosed, I picked myself up. I thought, oh, here we go.
When your therapist named complex PTSD, what shifted for you when that definition, label, clarity, or whatever on what was going on you said, oh, that's what that is. How did that change you?
It gave a name to what was happening to me for sure. And it helped me understand that, because that whole year I was struggling with, why am I unable to move forward? Why am I unable to look at the things that he has been doing, the consistency and the changes, and see that he's making effort? Why am I still consistently crying, unsure, insecure, all those feelings? When I was diagnosed with that, it just made me realize that I was struggling with my own internal trauma with what this was. It had nothing to do with anything outside of what was happening, but because I had to look inside. I had to really look inside.
That whole first year, there was no clarity in regards to what you were ultimately going to do. You hadn't left, but you hadn't made a firm choice about what the end result was going to be.
Yeah.
You were kind of living in that in-between state. What was that like for you? You've described a little bit, but talk about that first year a little bit more.
The first year, we sat in limbo the whole time. We sat in a space where the whole year was also trickle truth. You want to talk about re-traumatizing the brain, and that's what happens when, you have a whole year of that. It was really frustrating. Kept me angry for a very long time. Because when you feel like you've got some peace coming and then it blows up again, you start over.
Yeah, you described truth coming 1 inch at a time. That's how it
That's
showed up.
literally what was
Yeah.
happening. He was very clear with his answers. He was very honest with his answers when a situation came up and more truth was coming out. He didn't hide the answers when the moment came, but there was no volunteering of information.
Were you guys involved in counseling at the time?
Yes. He was doing counseling, I was doing counseling, and we started doing some couples counseling.
Well, was there ever a move towards let's deal with the truth, let's talk about it? And he just lied, said, okay, I've told you everything, but hadn't?
Yep.
Or was that just not dealt with adequately?
Bit of both, actually. I use the ADHD, or I talk about the ADHD and the BPD because those play into his struggle with regulation, with trying to get the truth out. The RSD, which is a part of ADHD, it plays a major role. And he still struggles with that today, but he's able to recognize and name it now. So that played a huge part in this trickle truth. His fear of me leaving completely took over. Not an excuse, and I want to make that very, very clear.
Well, how did you know when he shifted from that kind of self-protection to just taking true ownership and starting to be honest, transparent, and not holding anything back anymore?
He started after my breakdown, after my diagnosis. He realized that, hey, she's still here. She's struggling. She's hurt. And he knew all this the whole time. It kind of shifted for him in saying, I need to really own the truth and get it out. Otherwise, she's never going to heal. And that's going to be my fault because I can't seem to get this out.
You have children.
Yep.
Did they know what was going on?
Yep. They knew.
And how do you think their experience was different from yours?
There was a lot of anger for them. So their experience was looking at their dad, who's supposed to be a protector, who is supposed to be a figure that is supposed to show how you're supposed to treat your spouse. There was a lot of anger. Their experience was, this is what relationships are supposed to look like. He cheated, he treated mom like crap, and now they're angry because he did all these things. Their experience was disappointment. Their experience was shame. Their experience was, we don't want anything from you.
So how did that show up? I mean, that attitude of we don't want anything from you, did they just distance themselves from their father?
Yep.
Okay.
Totally. Yeah. Our eldest moved out and told him that they were done with him. Our youngest actually tried to have him arrested numerous times. They wanted him gone. They were so angry. They didn't want any part of him being a part of their lives. On top of that, our youngest, I feel, was trying to protect me. If I wasn't strong enough to walk away, then they had to take care of that for me.
So they were witnesses of that first year of just everything being so confused
all of it.
and you struggling significantly.
Yep, all of it.
And that sense like, okay, you caused this, thinking of their father, and the need to try to protect you, which it's only limited what they can do, but probably very strong feelings that, Mom, you should leave him. You're hurting yourself. Listen, I think this experience is probably really helpful for a lot of the clients that I work with, who not only have to deal with the shame of what they've done and the hurt that they've caused to someone that they promised to be faithful to, but then if the children are aware of and witness to what is going on, many times there is that separation, that conflict that often looks like there's no hope of reconciliation here. This is as bad as it can get. And it sounds like, I mean, they moved out and made it very clear, we don't want you here. And if you're not going to leave, I'm going to try to get you arrested just to force the issue.
Yep.
Yeah. So how long did that go on? Is it still going on?
The whole first year.
Okay.
The whole first year. Youngest still struggles a little bit with their relationship with their dad, but it is a work in progress. Our oldest and their dad, they've reconciled entirely. There's a very strong relationship there. There's a strong bond there. They've had their own individual conversations. They've kind of worked through what they needed to work through as a father and daughter, and they're solid.
What allowed that to happen?
Space to let our oldest go through what they needed to go through to be able to heal. They did their own therapy. We've done a couple family therapy sessions, mostly with the youngest one, and patience from my husband, patience to let them heal in a way that they needed to, and then approach him. He kind of sat back and said, you know what, I'll wait. And he even told them that one day, I'll wait. It's okay. I'm going to keep doing what I need to do to heal me so that when you are ready to rebuild with me, I am in a place where we can do this together.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is he didn't try to force the issue.
No.
He stated very clearly, hey, this is the path I'm on. I know what I did was wrong. I'm learning from it. I want to do those things that are important for me and for your mom and for our relationship to heal. And when you're ready, if you're ready, I'm willing to talk about any of this stuff with you.
Yeah.
Gave them the space to do that and to stand as witness to see if there was more than just words behind what he was saying.
Yeah, 100%. And that was huge too for both our kids, taking ownership, walking through his pain and saying, I can do this. I can do this. I can heal, and I can heal my family, and I can heal my wife, and I can heal my kids, but I got to heal me first. I spent so many years unhealed. It didn't work for me. Got to do something different. They're still working on it.
Mm-hmm.
They're still working on it. Yeah.
So this was about 5 years ago, just to give context to everything.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's
Yeah.
fine. Yeah.
They were actually first to witness before the affair started. They were first witness to see the dynamics between my husband and the affair person.
Hmm.
So they had suspicion. They'd actually come to me shortly after that and said, yeah, something's not right, Mama.
How did you respond to
I
their
said,
concerns?
okay, thank you. Oh, I appreciate it. I am so sorry you had to experience and see that, but I got it.
Did you have conversations with your husband about
Yep.
that? How did he react?
Gaslighting.
Okay.
Absolutely.
No
gaslighting.
ownership. Just like,
No
hey.
ownership, none whatsoever. It's being over exaggerated.
Yeah. Well, I'm familiar with that. I did the same thing myself. So
Yeah,
I'm very
yeah.
familiar with that strategy. Yeah.
Yeah. So
In the next episode, Michelle will talk more about how she found healing for herself and for her marriage. I hope you'll come back to listen.
Fade